All right.
We're on. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Good to
Okay.
see you. You gonna come over here, hon?
Maybe you better sit in another chair.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Noble is running the tech today here for our channel, so it's great to see all you guys.
Yep. Just call me Isaac too.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience with Digital Readers Club. Something happened with Zen's internet. It kind of just went out like 10 minutes before we ended. So
Yeah.
we were just talking in Discord and we closed in prayer, and then Zen was able to come back in, but he's still trying to close down the show on
Well,
YouTube.
Justin's back home, so he
He's
might be able to get
jet-lagged.
some help.
I'm not sure if he's awake or not, so we'll see.
Oh,
Maybe he
okay.
can get some help shutting that down. But
Yeah.
Isaac's been helping us on the phone, so we got a great show for you guys today.
Yep.
We have a special guest, Isaiah Chavez is back. We twisted his arm, got him to come back. No, he had to talk to his wife. His wife agreed to let
No,
him
his
come
wife
back.
is very. Again, she says no problem. But Isaiah is running a little late, but we still got our pre-show stuff to do.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have prayer requests.
So-
A lot of you had mentioned prayer requests in the chat, so I wanted to go over those along with an awesome praise report that was in the chat. I'm so excited to share that one. I didn't even get a chance to type it in there because it just happened in the chat. So,
Okay. Well, so as you can tell, we're behind the times as usual.
well, just 5 minutes ago in the chat, so I didn't have a chance to get it on.
Okay. So
All right, so we'll start doing prayer requests. Should we open up with prayer first? Or you want to do
Yeah, you
start
can.
prayer first? All right, let's open in prayer.
okay.
Dear Alba, thank you so much for today. Thank you for giving us the tools to be able to share our ministry with everyone worldwide. And we just ask that you continue to bless us and to bless this show. Alba God, thank you for giving us the chance to share our ministry with so many other people. And we just pray in advance for the prayer requests that have come in. And we give you all the praise and glory for all of the praise reports that have come in as well.
Yes.
Please have your hands on the tech today and watch over our show. Please be with Isaiah as he's presenting information, and Noble as he's interacting with him. And we just thank you for this ministry. It's such a blessing. We ask all this in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. All right. So, did
Okay.
you want to start the prayer request?
Sure. Do you want to change the screen? So everyone can see them?
Yes,
You
that's my job.
good? Okay. Noble's changing the screen.
Okay.
So, We have some prayer requests that have not been updated yet. We do have a few that have been updated. So we'll start out with our friends Tim and Anna Schwab from the God Culture. We're praying for you guys if you're watching us, that you'll have safety in your ministry. For your upcoming app, we're looking forward to that. And for the upcoming conference in November, if that's still on or not, or I guess we're still waiting to hear about that one in the Philippines. Let's see, is this up on the screen, hon?
Nope.
Oh.
I was just
Okay.
talking to Isaac about it.
Okay.
And I'm trying to figure it out.
All right, I'm going to go to the next screen.
You
Okay.
can go whatever screen you want. It's not going to show.
Okay. Well, also we had a new prayer request that came in yesterday, I believe. Jay Swope. I'm not sure what his name is on YouTube, but he follows us here in our
Why is it
class.
not working?
And he said if we could have prayer for his mom, she is in the hospital with an enlarged heart. So if someone could please adopt that prayer request, that would be great. That's a brand new one, and he said that he's praying for all of us and for our channel, and that his mom is as well. So we really appreciate you, Jay. If you could, if you're in the chat right now, please identify yourself. We'd love to know who you are, what your YouTube name is. Also for Donna Smith, continued prayers for her. I know she's going through some transition times as she's getting used to living with her parents again, and all the emotional things that come with moving. So continue to pray, keep her in your prayers. Also for Sherry Papin, it's an ongoing prayer request for her as well, with her mother-in-law living with them, and she is her caregiver. Am I flashing on and off the screen there?
No,
Okay.
I'm just trying to get the sparkle cam going. Isaac
Okay.
is
All right.
separate window.
So also for Serve the IM, asking prayers for salvation for family members. I think we all can identify with that, to just have salvation for our family members, for Yah to send someone that can reach them, because they don't seem to be listening to us very often. Also for Carolyn Ann, Clark's mom, ongoing prayer request. She's elderly and she has the big C all over her body. If you could please, especially we're praying for her salvation though. That's the main thing with that prayer request. Also for Joy and Justin Garcia, for their ministry. They have some exciting things that they're introducing, so I'm looking forward to
There we go.
seeing what they have planned for the
Okay,
next
turn it.
year for the Zen Garcia YouTube channel and for sacredwordpublishing.com. Okay, there we go. It's on the screen. All right. Also for Kay and Grace, an ongoing prayer request for them up until the adoption hearing actually happens. Thank you all for continuing to pray for them and everything that they're dealing with.
Maximize it.
Okay.
Right up.
What are you doing?
Trying to get to there.
Play? Okay.
There. Now we can see it.
Okay, next one is for JJ and Kristen. They also follow our channel. They ask for prayers. He has a dog bite that is still festering, and she has a pinched nerve in her leg, and also prayers for their finances and their new business that they're getting started. For Watchman of Christ, for Dean, we are praying for you, brother. He is having some C-word treatments that we can't say exactly what they are here, but he is reporting that he's feeling better and he's healing, so praise Yah for that. Zarin, he asked last week if we could please pray for him. He is mourning the death of his son, and that cannot be easy to deal with. Continued prayers for Zarin. And for Christy Frost, his sister, I'm sorry I didn't see any update. I think Sherry went and looked also. We know that your dog passed away a couple of weeks ago, and continued prayers for the health of you and your other pets and your finances. We will continue to pray for you, sister. And hallelujah! Okay, the first one I want to share before I forget, this is what Valerie shared in the chat, that about a month ago we thought that she was not going to have a place to live, but that is all resolved. She said, praise Yah, everything is all good, a house for her and her son. So that's really, really good news, Valerie. We're so concerned for you. But we know that the Most High is faithful, and we're so happy to hear that you're all set now. Also, praise that Zen is continuing to heal. You guys heard him talking. He sounds very close to normal again. His voice is very stable, and he's healing at home. Also, Leonard, continued praise for his progress. He's lost so much weight. I see an updated photo of you too, Leonard, and next to your name. I can barely see it. I have to look and kind of zoom in, but it looks like, yes, you've lost a lot of weight and are much healthier for it too. Last week, Kaylee and Isaac made their announcement that they are healthy and that they have a baby on the way. So we will have prayers for them from the next few months are going to be very exciting for them. Also for Donna Smith, her back is healed, so that's really good news, Donna. And that is all the prayer requests and praise reports we got, honey. So,
No, I do actually want to add some prayers.
oh, you want to add some in?
Yeah, just
okay.
I want to lift up the Smiths in Wisconsin. Kellen, he got sick from a trip this last weekend, and so he's not doing too good. But I'm sure that the Lord will heal him in time. And for his wife Jeannie, who's also pregnant and expecting
Next month.
In December. So we want to keep Jeannie in prayer and the baby, that everything goes smoothly, and that again everything goes without a hitch. And again, it's just nice to know that people still need prayer out there, and people are still getting sick. People are still going through situations, and that's why we do this, so that a lot of people can again pray. And the funny thing about praying is that when a lot of people pray, no one can take the what do you call it? They can't claim like it was their prayer that did it, because you know what? When so many people do it, I think God hears it even better, and God actually gets involved and does answer prayers, and no one can take the credit for it. And whereas if it's just one person and something happens, oh yeah, it was my prayer, I did it. No, that's not really how it works. I think when a lot of people pray, God hears and answers prayers. So,
for sure,
Yeah.
sure. And I wanted to do some updates because in our chat, Leonard has put, "I'm on your prayer list. Praise Yah for this new day and important information." Right on, Leonard. I'm looking for Christie's in here. Let me get down here. Let's see. Okay, I see Christy Frost. Oh, here. They rescued another bully, and they spent half the day in the hospital with the new dog. So, okay, we got prayers for you, Christy. Thank you. I got your prayer request. I will add that to the list. And so, wow. So you have a new dog. That's awesome.
yeah, and we got to keep talking because Isaiah did not get back in yet, so
Oh.
he's going to be signing in hopefully soon.
Okay.
So we're just going to keep chatting.
Alrighty.
Isaiah was busy sharing, and he was running a little late.
All right. Well, Isaac said that there's another prayer request for Kaylee as well. She's a little congested today, so we will pray for you, Kaylee, if you're listening. And yes, we will adopt that prayer request.
Okay. All right.
Is Isaiah here?
Isaiah is calling me.
Okay, right on.
Yes.
It's so hard to figure out all this tech. It makes my head spin. There's no way I could do
Hey,
this.
Isaiah. Hold on. I'm not hearing you. Okay, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. So if you can sign in, and I'll invite you into the Zoom. I have to do that now. See, you're challenging my tech skills, man.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Good timing, though. So, Lisa, go ahead.
Okay, so we got Isaiah. We're getting him
on
all
his way,
connected.
signed in.
He's on his way in. Yes, I see everybody in the chat. Thank you. We praise
It's
Yah.
a Valley group meeting.
Oh.
Praise
wow.
Yah for a new day. Yes, we do praise him for sure. And thank you, Shay, for
Okay.
putting the scripture in James
Screen
5:16.
share.
The effectual, fervent prayer
Hold
of a
on,
righteous
let
man
me see.
availeth much. I love that one too. And
Yeah,
that's
this is
exactly, I
Valley
think, what
group
Noble was
meeting.
trying to make the point
You
here.
guys,
That when
let
more
me see.
people pray, it seems, and especially if it's a
One more
fervent
place.
prayer where you just don't give up, like you're going to keep praying until the Most High answers you in some way or another, right? You guys could all, if you don't mind praying for me, I have kind
Wow,
of
wait a
a
minute.
diagnosis that I wasn't going to share
Okay,
except
hold
online
on.
for
Okay,
a while.
I'm gonna text Isaac.
While Noble is trying to get Isaiah hooked up here, if you could pray for me, I've had this kind of
Camera on
nagging
yourself.
feeling for years that something else was going on with my system because I have a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, been on disability for that. But my doctor recently did a clinical diagnosis because it's kind of like past the stage where I could actually have blood tests to prove this. But I do have, it seems like I do have Lyme disease. I was bit by a tick decades ago when I was a child, and it was really traumatic because it burrowed into my neck, into my spine, and it lived there for like 5 days before we were able to come down from the mountains and go to a doctor. So I've had quite a few health issues ever since then.
Alright.
And that would explain a lot. But we know the Most High can heal, and there's thousands and thousands of cases of Lyme being discovered in the U.S. and in Europe on a regular basis. So I know I'm not alone in this. But if you guys have any suggestions of things that I should do, maybe to kind of put it in remission at least for a while until we can figure it out. I've been trying different herbal things, and it seems to be working pretty well. But it helps to explain a lot. I mean, it makes me a little sad that I didn't understand this earlier and have a doctor review with me what I could do. But any suggestions are welcome.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for praying for me.
See.
Awesome.
Contact email.
Yes, let's see what else you guys are saying. Noble is still working on getting Isaiah connected here, and
Invite people to join.
oh,
Where's
good.
813?
I'm so glad you guys all joined us. So I see Sherry and
3423.
Tammy,
Is
Monkulis,
that your number?
Brick, all are moderators in
Okay.
here. Thank you guys so much
wait.
for
Hold on.
joining us. You guys are awesome.
Hold on, okay? Okay, Isaac.
Noble's on the phone with Isaac now, so I think we'll be able to get him connected here
Hello.
pretty soon. Did you guys enjoy all the information he shared last time? That was like so mind blowing to me. It's like, wow, I didn't realize that there was other like messianic type of figures that are mentioned in the
close the
Bible,
Zoom then.
leading up to Yeshua. So that was really awesome to hear, like all of that proof about Joseph in the Old Testament. I never would have thought. Sherry says we have a neighbor that cannot eat red meat ever since. Okay, well,
right?
you know, it's kind of strange.
Got it.
I was trying to do the opposite, doing like more of a carnivore diet because I kind of tended to be more vegan before. I mean, I still eat meat, but we have to kind of see. I think
So,
maybe my
since
blood
we're
type,
ending the Zoom
I
meeting,
think
it's only with
carnivore might
Isaiah,
be
not the
better.
YouTube,
We'll
right?
see. Well, I'm trying a bunch of different things here.
Okay.
Let's see. Yes, it is very common in Missouri.
Okay,
In
so I
fact, I
re-clicked
have a
it. It
friend
says what?
whose daughter went to Missouri for like a month when she
Okay,
was
new
little,
meeting.
and she
Okay, new meeting.
has all the same symptoms as I do. And she's from, like, she's Hawaiian. She's from Hawaii, so wow.
Yeah, it's on.
It's also pretty
on,
common
it's
in
on the big screen.
Wisconsin as
It says
well.
start with
Our
video,
friends
use my
there,
personal meeting ID.
they caught it early enough, though. I think if you catch it early enough, you can do some
Wait,
rounds
wait,
of
wait,
antibiotics
no, I don't
and
see
it'll be
that.
okay. But
You
mine
said
has
hit
been,
new
I
meeting
think,
or
the
should
tick
I
bit
just-
me when I was like 6 years old, so I've had a lot of like
Okay,
sleep
new meeting,
issues
I hit
and
it.
crazy
Okay,
illnesses
join
ever
with
since
computer
then.
audio.
The doctors would just
Okay.
say like, oh, it's your immune system attacking itself. Like, that's not how the Most High designed our immune systems, right? Like,
Okay, that's good.
that never made any sense to me. But when you know that there's a virus that's in there that's been implanted by insects or something else, then that would make sense. So.
Wait, I'm looking for invite.
Okay, yes, Sherry, we are definitely moderated up.
Okay,
So no
participant
AI
invite.
bots had better get in there, okay, you guys? Yeah, there's some strange
Copy invite link. Okay,
strange,
got it.
strange things that are
Now what?
associated with Lyme's disease. I didn't even realize that you don't necessarily even have to have that telltale bullseye like bite mark, you know, or evidence on your skin. Like, it
Go-
can be
gonna have-
translated
gonna
to
have to
other
copy,
insects as well, and it doesn't
Isaiah's
always have to
phone
have that. So
number or something.
yes, it can do a lot of damage. Like, I think that's why I was so like excited to do the parasite cleanse, because that's actually
Okay,
kind of
so
how I
how
found
do I
out.
get the
Because
URL?
the symptoms I was having during the cleanse are not normal,
Oh,
and so I was kind of
alright.
looking further,
Alright,
like,
give me,
what is
tell
going on?
Isaiah I'm
Because,
gonna call him back.
like, Noble
Okay.
did the parasite cleanse, he was fine, but I was having all these crazy side effects and everything, so I
Isaiah,
started doing a mold cleanse after that. I'm doing that right now, and some
Okay.
other strange symptoms, like extremely
Alright.
swollen lymph nodes on the back of my head. I've
Okay.
never,
There you go.
my
You
doctor
see the
said she's
screen?
never seen them that big on somebody's scalp, so that was very painful.
Want me to go back?
Okay,
I
how
just
we doing,
clicked on
guys?
this.
Oh, they're still getting
I'll tell
Isaiah
you when
brought
we're
in
on,
here?
Lisa.
Okay, thank you, hon.
And then
Just let me know.
the invite copy link.
So let's see who else is
Oh,
here.
invite copy
All right,
link.
Shay's here.
Copy link.
Leonard, Dale, Cool Eat, good to see you. I love your name.
Invite.
Clark.
Copy invite
Good
link.
to see you,
That one.
Clark. Christy Frost, you got your prayer request
Copy link.
sister.
Okay, now what?
And
You're gonna go to my
Tammy, Brick,
Your Gmail.
Teshuva Tales, Shalom, Shaloha from Hawaii, all the way to Louisiana there.
Okay. There you go.
Edwin Messenger and Phil.
Okay.
Awesome. I'm so
Okay.
glad you guys all joined us today.
Top right.
It's kind of a surprise though. We decided to
Top
do
what?
this class. We usually
Top
do
right.
that. We usually have our Shabbat week
Top right.
this week, but we enjoyed Isaiah's presentation so much. We thought, okay, we have to have him come back. So, and Christine, hey, good to see you, sister.
Button with the
Aloha.
envelope in the middle of the screen.
Yeah,
Right?
Sherry. You know, I'm finding that too. I'm kind of like, why would I ever
this one,
pay
inbox.
like a huge amount of money for a blood test that's not always going to be accurate? So I've even heard of like there's one that's like
Okay.
$5,000 that's
And then
supposed to be
type
extremely
in,
accurate, but I'm not gonna pay for that.
hold
It's
on.
crazy.
Remember
It just
what
is crazy
the
that
email is.
you know this started back in the
I got
60s,
Isaiah.
I
It's me
believe.
and Isaiah too.
With through the CIA, it's just like a
Let's see.
whole
Hold on just a second.
rabbit
Hold on.
trail to go
Okay.
down as to how Lyme disease actually started. Okay.
Sent.
Yes, I agree, Leonard. Eternal
Alright,
Health
SEA,
provides
put
interesting
in
information
SEA,
on
type in
disease.
SEA.
I see Isaiah.
Dale, you're so kind. I see you typed that in
Yeah,
there.
I know, but those
Thank
are
you,
the
thank you, brother.
messages that
I
you
appreciate it. I
received.
never
Okay,
thought
okay.
my voice was that great, but
So
Okay.
we can join.
SEA. Okay,
There
good.
you go.
yes.
Just
Do
click
you
on
see?
that.
Do you hear the
Got it.
background?
And then go to the bottom below subject.
Below.
Yeah, they are pretty common in that. They're not common in Hawaii at all, but they're getting a little more common as far as diagnosis because a lot of people travel to the mainland
Control what?
and then they come back
Control
and
V on the
they
keyboard.
start getting
Control V.
sick and they don't know why. So I was actually kind of sick in the
No?
Philippines,
No,
but
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it was
right, index.
travel and something
Control,
triggered
okay.
whatever.
Oh, Control V. Control V. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Below
yeah, quite a few
subject.
different ones,
Okay.
Sherry. I've read about that.
Control V.
There's two
I did. I hit
clinics
Control
in the
V.
world
Nothing's coming up. I
that
didn't copy
focus
anything.
on
I didn't copy
Lyme
any URL.
especially. There's one in Germany and there's one in Mexico. So I'm actively looking into seeing what the,
Go back to
especially the one
Zoom,
in
okay?
Mexico offers.
Go back to Zoom.
It's kind of cool because I've heard testimonies of people
We gotta
going there.
minimize
They
this
stay there
Gmail
like
then.
3 to 6 weeks
No,
and
you don't have
they
to.
come back and they're better. Like they
I'm
they
hitting
have no
the Zoom
symptoms
button.
anymore. So that
Oh, there.
would be
Okay,
nice.
can you finally come on?
Yeah, Sherry, definitely. Our lovely government at work again.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta hit the far left.
So yeah,
Okay.
And,
that's a little update on
and
myself
pause them.
and what you guys can pray for me.
Oh.
Uh,
I can't see.
but I kind of
Okay,
wasn't
yeah.
sure if I should share that or not, just
Same thing.
because
You're
you know, it's kind of strange to have a clinical diagnosis, but it's the same thing they do for fibromyalgia. It's not something you can find in a blood test or anything.
Invite.
And
Okay.
normally, I think that they would
And then go,
treat
yeah.
using a lot of rounds of antibiotics, but that's if you know within the first month or two after you've been bit, not decades
Okay.
later. So
All right.
I would not want to do that either. That like will mess up my gut big time.
HTTP://
Yeah, I've heard of that one too, Sherry.
Yeah, right
Rocky
here.
Mountain
This one.
Spotted Fever.
Copy.
You're gonna
Yes,
delete
exactly.
everything else
Thank you so much.
below that,
Thank you so much
and then
for
just leave that.
praying.
delete
and
everything
for-
else below
yes,
it?
yes.
Yeah.
The lime and the coconut. I'm actually using coconut oil.
Delete all that.
Parasites
Okay.
and bacteria
And
hate
then
coconuts for
put
some
in
reason,
his
so
email
I am
on the
using
two,
every
like
single
the
part of the
sending to.
coconut as much as possible, including the oil.
Say that again.
So you see
But yeah,
lift the phone. I can't see.
Oh, sorry.
okay.
Alright. So you see
Isaac is
recipients.
FaceTiming with us, trying to figure
Click
this out.
recipients.
Okay, got it.
Thank you so
Okay.
much for
There you go.
hanging in there
And
with
then
you,
type
with us,
the
you guys.
GA. There you go.
Okay.
And then click that, and then send it to him.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
send
so
it.
he
Now
should be
everyone's
checking
freaking-
his email, but text him
It's
and say,
ironic. We actually have a lime tree in our
Okay.
yard.
All right.
And then
yes.
Uh,
go back to Zoom.
It's a
Do I-
Filipino
do I-
one.
do I
Like
close up
Monkulis
this
knows
thing
what it
then?
is.
Yeah,
Calamansi.
yeah, so
We call it
we're
calamansi, where they're like this big and they're actually
Okay.
orange. They're not green.
And then,
And
yeah,
to
go
me,
back
they
there.
taste a lot better. They taste
And
very
then
good
text
on
him,
papaya.
text him
Do you
whatever.
like that, Monkulis?
All right. Let me text him now.
Okay. Wow, Sherry. A lot of,
And then
they
tell
have
him
lost
copy
papers
the
to practice
URL
for
link.
help. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I've been doing a bunch of research online. I've heard a lot of people's testimonies. It's
Oh, there.
it's
I
kind
got
of
him
like
on.
never ending. Oh,
All right.
good. Okay, we got
Okay, now
Isaiah.
how do I unmute him?
I can't see.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Can you hear me?
Okay, we have Isaiah.
Yes, I can hear
He
you.
will be
Hang
with
on,
us
I'm
very
getting
soon.
Isaac on. How did I get Isaac on again?
Oh, you gotta go back to FaceTime.
FaceTime.
There you go.
Yeah, I make calamansi juice as
Oh,
well,
what did I do?
Monkulis, so you know
Share
what
my
that is.
screen.
I ate a lot of that in the Philippines, actually. It's like a really delicious.
Okay.
Delicious. Filipino lime.
Which one then?
Oh, and we stayed in, ironically, a lime hotel 2 times in the Philippines.
Okay.
Not realizing that
You
I
still
had this
there?
diagnosis. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Isaiah's here. I can hear him.
Okay, now we just have to get
I
him
should
on
have 2
YouTube.
profiles on. Is sharing available?
Hold on. Join. Okay, Isaac. There we go. There's the screen.
Screen share's on Zoom.
Oh wait, let me change the camera.
Use it.
Yeah, you see me. There you go.
Okay. And then remember how you have to say multiple.
Okay, we are almost there. We
The
see Isaiah's
participants,
face.
yeah.
Hey, Isaiah.
Sorry about that,
Oh,
guys.
Here, okay.
Okay.
Multiple participants.
Isaac is giving Noble a tutorial right now on getting hooked up from Zoom into
And then you should be able to
YouTube.
screen
So
share.
we should see
There you go.
we should see
Okay.
him very soon.
Right? Looks good, right? There you go.
And
So
it's
it's
on
up.
OBS. Make sure it's on OBS. So well, you gotta go to OBS again.
Okay, OBS is this one.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm gonna take this
no,
off of
you're
here.
not done.
Okay. What else?
So go to Zoom meeting right below SmartGo.
Right.
There we go.
Zoom meeting. Okay. Now what?
Oh, now click that. Click that right there.
No, I'll just click this.
Just that. And
Okay.
then you see that top part with the arrow pointing down, where right below Mama's
Okay,
face.
he's almost there.
Oh yeah. Okay, right here.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Dale. I really
There
like
you go.
Conspiracy
Click
Music
that.
Guru.
What?
He's got
What,
some
meeting or
hilarious
workplace?
songs.
Click-
I
click
really like
meeting.
his songs. He's awesome.
All right.
Thank you,
And
Sherry,
then
for being so
close
patient.
her face, close SmartGo,
Let's
and you
see,
should
what else?
Isaiah.
Oh, close Daver, you mean?
Yeah, close Aver.
Oh, thanks for
Close
deleting
SmartGo.
that part. We have
Close
to.
Sparkle.
I'm
Okay,
not
here
sure
it is.
how censoring
Alright.
they are with
Right,
Lyme
use
disease.
enough.
We're good to go?
Yep.
Okay, now.
Okay, is it on YouTube?
Isaiah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, brother.
Okay, now wait, can they hear Isaiah?
Can you guys hear Isaiah, Tammy, Sherry, Monkulis? Britt?
Testing.
They should.
Testing.
Desktop audio is-
Okay. Oh, it's on. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank
All
you guys for
right.
your
Sorry about that,
patience,
guys.
No. It's a good tutorial. Thanks, son. I will talk to you later.
Should be good.
Okay. Bye, son.
Don't forget to end broadcast.
Yep.
When you're done.
I see it. Okay. All right. Bye, son. All right, Isaiah, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I guess I'm not too good with Zoom either.
No, we're all learning, but we got you up and going, so that's the main thing. Yeah, so we're excited to see all your new teachings, man. So without further ado, why don't I let you get right into it, and then we can talk more after. All right?
Awesome. All right. So, for anyone that wasn't familiar with the last teaching, I gave a brief overview about the idea of Messiah, son of Joseph. And so this evening we're going to be running with that idea.
Do you think you should
If
do a little
you-
review? I mean, do you think that would be a so they can understand what's going on?
Sure. Okay, so the idea of Messiah ben Joseph is an idea, I believe, within the Tanakh, but also in rabbinical writings, in the Targums, in the Second Temple writings,
Right.
like the 12 Patriarchs,
Right.
Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. So there's this idea that there is a Messiah that is promised to the line and the seed of Joseph. Now, this isn't to take away from the Davidic Messiah that we all know and love. And I'm not saying that there's a second Messiah. I'm saying that Yeshua fulfills this hidden Messiah that most people aren't privy to.
Yes.
And there's examples of this Messiah within the Talmud. There's examples of this Isaiah within the Targums. There's examples of this Messiah, like I said, in Second Temple literature.
Dead Sea
And there's
Scrolls.
examples of this Messiah within the Samaritan belief system as well.
Yes.
I think it's 4Q Testimonia. I don't have that pulled up, but just for anyone to go look. 4Q Testimonia actually talks about multiple types of messiahs. You have a Levitical Messiah. You have a Messiah that's like Moses. You have
Joshua.
the Davidic Messiah, right? And then you have the Messiah of Joseph or Joshua, which Joshua is a descendant of Joseph, so it's kind of the same thing.
Right. Right.
Anyways, so yeah, so I just wanted to delve into this idea a bit. Today we're going to talk about the ox, both the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the farm ox or the common ox,
Right.
and the wild ox of Joseph. And so if you guys can see the pictures here, this is the picture of a shore, right? Because there's two different Hebrew words for these two different types of oxes. You have the shore here, which is kind of the more common one that we're used to seeing of an ox, and then you have a re'em. And this is a wild ox, and there's some interesting things taught in the Tanakh and in other writings about these two animals.
Right.
So we're going to delve into that a little deeper and kind of see what we can see with the lens of looking for the Messiah, son of Joseph.
Okay. Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. So This is the shore and the re'im of Yosef. So we're going to start here with Deuteronomy 33, 13 through 17. Now this is Moses' blessing unto Joseph. Towards the end of Deuteronomy, Moses gives a blessing to the 12 tribes before they go into the land, very similar to how Jacob gives a blessing to his 12 sons. So it says, of Yosef he said, blessed of Yehovah be his land, with the choice things of heaven, with the dew, and from the deep line beneath, and with the treasures of the sun, and with the treasures of the moons, and with the chief things of the ancient mountains, and with the choice things of the everlasting hills, and with the choice things of the earth, and its fullness, and the favor of him who dwelt in the bush. Let it come to the head of Yosef, and to the crown of the head of the one distinguished, the Natzer, among his brothers. As the firstborn of his ox, the shore, majesty is his, and his horns are the horns of the wild ox, the re'im. With them he will push the peoples all at once towards the ends of the earth, and those are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and those are the thousands of Manasseh. Right, so for those of you guys that were here last week, we'll kind of touch on this a little bit, but we were talking about the sun and the moon, and how the sun and the moon were symbolic of the sun being the priesthood and the moon being the kingship. And so we see here in Deuteronomy, he's blessing him with the treasures of the sun and the treasures of the moon. It's interesting. If you were here last week, we'll touch on that a little bit more, but just know that Joseph has a weird relationship with the sun and the moon. We see here the Natzer again. We talked about Matthew says, and he shall be called the Nazrim according to the prophets. Well, last week we talked about Jacob's blessing, where Jacob blesses Joseph and the Nazrim, or the Natzer. And now here Moshe is reiterating again the Natzer when it's talking about Joseph. So just very interesting stuff. And this is what we're getting to today, is the firstborn of his ox is sure, majesty is his, and his horns are the horns of a wild ox, a re'im. So we have something interesting here. These are two different species of oxes, and he is like a normal ox, a shore, yet he has the horns of a wild ox, a re'im. So we're going to delve into why that's a little bit weird. We'll talk about the shore first, and we'll get into the re'im. Oops. Oh no. You guys are seeing all my secrets too early. Okay. Okay. So the shore is a sacrificial ox. It says in Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 19, you shall consecrate to Yehovah your God all the firstborn males that are born to your herd and of your flock. You shall not work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. So this would include what we just read, the firstborn shore, that is alluding to Joseph, right? We read right here, he's the firstborn of his shore. So he's not to work, you're not to shear him, you're not to do anything with him. He's supposed to be consecrated. We see in Numbers chapter 18, verse 17, but the firstborn of an ox, or the firstborn of a sheep, or the firstborn of a goat, you shall not redeem, they are holy. You shall sprinkle their blood on the altar, and shall offer up their fat in smoke as an offering by fire for a smoothing aroma to Yehovah. So we see here the fate of a firstborn shore, of a firstborn ox. is to be sacrificed. So first they're consecrated with no work, and then they are to be sacrificed, and you're to sprinkle their blood on the altar. So what is Moshe getting at here when he's telling Joseph that he is the firstborn of Ashur? It's very interesting to think about. Let's take it to Jacob's blessing, because here in Jacob's blessing, you have a very interesting word choice, and I'm going to share that with you right now. Let's see here. Joseph is a fruitful vine. So this is Jacob speaking to Joseph now. He's saying Joseph is a fruitful vine by a spring. Its branches run over the wall. And you see here the word for wall is
Sure.
is shur,
Yeah.
right? You see shin, you see vav, and you see resh,
It's a
and you
shur.
see the vowel point thing, right?
Right.
So if you were to take away the Masoretic vowels, which are very late in the Hebrew writings, that means these dots right here. If you were to take away these dots, it would actually be the same word as ox, shore. The only differentiation between a wall and an ox, shore, is the O sound, the dagesh over the vav. So without the vowel pointing, this verse in Genesis that we've already went over could also mean Joseph is a fruitful vine. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got like a little thing. Joseph is a fruitful vine by a spring. Its branches go over an ox.
An ox.
Okay,
Wow.
so that seems a little bit out of place. That's kind of weird imagery, right? There's branches going over an ox. What could that mean? We'll put that in our back pocket.
There's
We'll
a
put
comment-
that. Oh, is there a question?
There's just a comment, Isaiah, from Monkulis. He's asking. He just said he's surprised that CPD version uses the word Nazarite. Did you? I was trying to look and see what verse he was referring to.
CPD.
Oh,
Yeah.
What's that CPD? What's CPD?
I'll ask him, but I thought I saw a text that said Nazarite on there, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you gotta find out what CPD
Okay.
means.
Yeah, sorry, Isaiah. I'll ask him.
no, that's okay. I wasn't familiar with that
No,
with that Bible.
Yeah, well, he said that, he's quoting, he said, "And from the fruits of the earth with all its plenitude, may the blessing of him who appeared in the bush settle upon the head of Joseph and upon the top of the head of the Nazarite among his sons," is what he's quoting there.
Okay, I think some people have interpreted that to be Nazarite, but the actual Hebrew word there is Nazir,
Okay,
which Nazarite comes from the root word of Nazir, which is to be consecrated. So I could see why somebody would translate it as Nazarite.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, Catholic
All right.
Public Domain. CPD means Catholic Public Domain. Okay.
Ah,
I didn't know that.
interesting.
Thanks, Monk.
And that's Deuteronomy 33:16.
Right,
Okay.
right, interesting.
Yep. Okay.
So you guys keep this in mind here that this word wall could also mean ox
Mm-hmm.
in Genesis chapter 49, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and I don't know why it's so jumpy. Okay. It says a re'em. Now we're going to talk about a re'em. And actually, if you look in English translations, the re'em could be translated into three things. It could be translated into an auroch. It could be translated into a wild ox. And in the KJV, this is the word that they translate as unicorn. So I'm sure that everybody here has seen the translation of unicorn
Right.
in the KJV. That word is re'em.
Ah. That's where you get it from. Okay.
And it's very interesting we have here a Re'em is a fearsome creature called Re'em, right? Resh, Aleph, Mem, from the root of Ra'am. Again, if you take away the vowel pointings, it's the same word. This is Resh, Aleph, Mem. And Ra'am means to be lifted up, or to be, or to go up, or to go to a high place.
Right.
And it's because the creature's horns are very big. It's an undomesticated animal. And the Re'em is not supposed to be sacrificed because it's undomesticated. So in Leviticus chapter 1, verses 2, it says, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when anyone among you brings an offering to the Lord, bring as your offering an animal from either the herd or the flock." So when you give an offering to God of any type, it's not to be a wild animal. So we have Moshe describing Yosef as an ox, a domesticated ox, with the horns of an undomesticated ox.
Wow.
Very interesting imagery here.
I heard that the Re'em or the Aurochs was supposedly like over 3 meters tall, and its horns were even higher than the actual body or the head of the ox. So that makes it over 10 feet. That's how big of an animal this is.
Right. There's also documents, historical documents that are describing these creatures, which I'll quote one here in a bit, but it's Julius Caesar spots one, and he can't believe his eyes because it is a bull that is almost as big as an elephant.
Right.
And so Job 39:9, I'm just going to give a brief overview of that, but Job 39:9, we'll quote more later, but God is asking Job if a Re'em will agree to serve him, because a Re'em is something that cannot be tamed, and it goes more into depth in that in Job. We'll get to that verse here in a bit. I also wanted to put that in Numbers 23:22, in Balaam's blessing, he describes God as bringing Israel out of Egypt with the strength of a Re'em, right? So now it's comparing God to the strength of this Re'em. So this is a very mighty animal, right?
Right. Powerful.
And here's the quote by Julius Caesar right here. It says, Julius Caesar wrote a description of his encounter of a Re'em, saying they are only a little smaller than elephants, and they have the appearance, color, and shape of a bull. Their strength and speed are great. They spare neither man nor beast that they see. They cannot endure the sight of a man. They cannot be tamed, even when you take them young. The size, shape, and appearance of their horns differs greatly than the horns of our oxen. And that's from Gaelic War, Book 6, Volume 28.
Wow.
So, if you think about it, it's kind of a weird creature to behold, because a normal ox isn't as tall as an auroch, but it describes Yosef as a normal-looking ox with the horns of a Re'em, of a auroch. So it's a very interesting imagery that we're getting into here. Now, Re'em in Genesis 49, it says here in the same verse that we were talking about the ox, it says, Yosef is a fruitful vine by a spring. Its branches go over an ox. Remember, we talked about that's a weird translation about branches being on the ox, right? And while this verse isn't explicit about it being a Re'em, it is implicit of the idea that branches are actually the horns of the Re'em. And these can mean descendants, and they are often used in messianic prophecy. So branches and horns are interchangeable with each other. And here's actually some examples of that. In Psalm 132, verses 17 through 18, it says, there I will cause the horn of David to spring forth. I will prepare a lamp for my anointed. His enemies I will clothe with shame, but upon himself his crown shall shine. Right? Very similar wording to being on the crown of the Natsir. Isaiah 11, verses 1 through 2, it says, a shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might, the Spirit of knowledge, and the fear of the Lord. Okay, so these two are talking about messianic prophecies. One is referring to the Messiah as the horn, and the other one is referring to the Messiah as a branch. Okay, so we have these interchangeability here. And actually, one even talks about being anointed, right? It says, I have prepared a lamp for my anointed, a lamp has oil. Isaiah says, the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, because the Spirit is what anoints him. For you guys, for anyone familiar, right, Yeshua was anointed with the Ruach, with the Spirit, at the time of his baptism. We're getting these similar imagery here of anointing. It says in Psalm 92, 9 through 11, for surely your enemies, Lord, surely your enemies will perish. Call evildoers, all evildoers will be scattered. You have exalted my horn, that of a wild ox. Fine oils have been poured on me. My eyes have seen the defeat of my adversaries. My ears have heard
the rout of my wicked foes.
The rout of my wicked foes. Sorry about that, guys. I have a pop-up here. It's not showing up on the thing, I don't think, but it's blocking this area right here for me, so it's kind of hard. But these are all messianic prophecies. They're all describing horns. They're all describing anointing. And one of them is describing a branch, but they're all describing the Messiah. So if we think of branches and horns, they're not too dissimilar from each other. If the branches are going over the ox, in my mind's eye, the branches are on the horns of the ox, or the branches are the horns of the ox. And you get the same imagery here in Deuteronomy. And I think this is why I think Moshe was looking at Jacob's blessing. I think he had Jacob's blessing written down, and he's making his blessing similar to Jacob's blessing. Right here, I have both of their blessings pulled up on the screen side by side, and you can see the similarities here. I know we went over it before, but it says of Yosef, he said, blessed of Yehovah be his land, with the choice things of heaven, with the dew, and from the deep lying beneath, and with the treasures of the sun and the treasures of the moon, and with the chief things of the ancient mountains, and with the choice things of the everlasting hills, and with the choice things of the earth, and the fullness and the favor of him who dwelt in the bush. Let it come to the head of Yosef, and to the crown of the head of the one distinguished, the Natsir, among his brothers. As the firstborn of his ox, the shore, majesty is his, and the horns are the horns of a wild ox, a Ra'im. With them he will push the peoples all at once to the ends of the earth, and these are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and those are the thousands of Manasseh, right? And then we have here, Yosef is a fruitful vine by a spring. Its branches go over the ox, the shore. The archers bitterly attacked him and shot at him and harassed him, but his bow remained firm. His arms were agile from the hands of the mighty one of Yaakov, similar to the one that was in the bush for Moshe. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, like what followed Moshe in the wilderness. From the God of your father who helps you, and by El Shaddai who blesses you, with heavens above, blessings of the deep that lie beneath, blessings of the breast of the womb, blessings of your father has suppressed the blessings of my ancestors up to the utmost bounds of the everlasting hills. So the blessings are very similar. This blessing talks about everlasting hills, mountains, the fullness in the deep. This one is saying the same things. And then it says, may they be on the head of Joseph, in the crown of the head of the one distinguished, a Natzer among his brothers, right? And then right here it says tens of thousands of Ephraim and the thousands of Manasseh, because Ephraim and Manasseh are the servants or sons of Joseph. So if you look at the imagery when Joseph was ruler in the palace, and you can see this really well in the book of Jasher, Manasseh and Ephraim were like his bouncers. So like when he said to do something, these two were his bouncers. These are his horns. These are Joseph's horns, his two sons, and one horn is greater than the other horn. And that's why you get the 10,000s of Manasseh, or of Ephraim, and the thousands of Manasseh, because it says in Genesis chapter 48, but his father refused and said, I know my son, he will become a people and he will be great, talking about Manasseh. However, his younger brother, Ephraim, shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations.
Wow.
Right, so that's why we have the 10,000s of Ephraim and the thousands of Manasseh. So you have Joseph, and you have his sons, his sub-tribes of the tribe of Joseph, and they are his horns.
Hey, Isaiah.
Very interesting.
It is very interesting, because wasn't it like that also when Joseph's father Jacob was going to be dying, and he was giving his blessing over the two children of Joseph? Yep, and he put his right hand on the younger and his left hand on the older, and Joseph tried to correct him, and Yaakov says, no, I know what I'm doing, you know. So he actually gave the blessing to the younger, which was Ephraim, right?
Right, and if you look at the blessing, it's very similar to Abraham's blessing.
Right.
It's very similar to Jacob's blessing about them becoming a multitude of nations. And this is a whole study in itself, but I believe that that is where a lot of the quote-unquote Gentiles are actually part of the tribes of Ephraim, because when you look later in the Bible, one of the curses of Ephraim, or as we see the original was a blessing, but later we see it as a curse, was that he was to be sifted into the nations thoroughly and then brought back. So very interesting things there.
Very interesting.
I wanted to bring this forth. We talked about this last week as well, but this is the Testament of Naphtali, and I want to reiterate that this was in the Dead Sea Scrolls. This was written before Yeshua, and this is one of those Second Temple texts that we really have to look into. I encourage everybody at home to either purchase or go online and see for free all of the Testaments of the 12 Patriarchs, because they are very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
It says here in Naphtali chapter 5, in the 40th year of my life, I saw a vision on the Mount of Olives, which is also called the Mount of Messiah, for anyone interested in looking to the Mount of Olives, on the east of Jerusalem, that the sun and moon were standing still. Okay, pause. We just seen in Deuteronomy that they're talking about the sun and the moon earlier, about Joseph, but let's continue. And behold, Yitzhak, Isaac, the father of my father, said to us, run and lay hold of them, each one according to his strength. To him that seizeth them will the sun and the moon belong. And we all ran together, and Levi laid hold of the sun, and Yehuda outstripped the others and seized the moon. All right, so we have Levi grabbing the sun, Judah grabbing the moon, and they were both of them lifted with them. And then Levi became as the sun. A certain young man gave him 12 branches of palm, and Judah was as bright as the moon, and under their feet there were 12 rays. And the bull upon the earth, with 2 great horns and an eagle's wings upon his back. And we wished to seize him, the bull, but could not. Joseph came and seized the bull and ascended with him on high. And I saw, for I was there, and behold, a holy writing appeared before us, saying, Assyrians, Medes, Persians, Chaldeans, Syrians shall possess in captivity the 12 tribes of Israel. Right, okay, so we see that Joseph is grabbing hold of this bull again, and it had 2 great horns, just like what was described in Deuteronomy of his blessing. This bull with 2 great horns and eagle wings on his back, right? They make sure to include that it has 2 great horns. It's not an average bull or ox. Okay, now we're going to get into other Second Temple literature. This is the book of Enoch, and we're going over a small portion of what is called the animal apocalypse. Now, the animal apocalypse is an overview of Israel and its history, but it's told in a way that the patriarchs are bulls, and then the bulls become sheep, and then the sheep beget more sheep, and the sheep are being persecuted by the dogs. They're being persecuted by the wolves. They're being persecuted by the lions. They're being persecuted by all these things, and it's describing Israel as these sheep, and it actually goes all the way from the time of Adam to the time of the Messiah. And so this is called the animal apocalypse. It's the whole thing is First Enoch 88 through 90, but we're just going to go over 90 because this is the portion that's talking about the Messiah, right? And so it says here in First Enoch chapter 90 verses 37 through 38, it says, I saw that a white bull was born with large horns, and all the beasts of the field and all the animals of the air feared him and made petition to him all the time. I saw till all their generations were transformed, and they all became white bulls. And the first among them became a nagar, a wild ox. And that nagar, the wild ox, became a great animal and had great black horns on its head. And the Lord of the sheep rejoiced over it and over all the oxen. Right, so we have some weird stuff going on here. And if you read the whole animal apocalypse, you'll see that this bull gathers all the beasts of the field and all the birds together. And when we're reading in the text, all of these animals are going towards this bull, but when they go to the bull, they're being transformed to be like the bull.
Wow.
And so the bull was a wild ox, and the wild ox becomes a great animal. So it becomes different than what everybody initially turned into. So they're coming to the white bull, and the white bull is turning into a nagar. And the nagar gets itself great big black horns on its head, and the Lord of the sheep, that's God, that's what he's called in this animal apocalypse, he rejoices over it and all the oxen. So there's some interesting words here in the Ethiopian, because this is primarily, Enoch is found in a lot of different, there's no Aramaic for this section of the book, and there's also no Greek for this section of the book. This is in Ge'ez, which is like the Ethiopian Semitic language. It's very similar to Hebrew. And so nagar means word in Ethiopic. So if we go here where it says nagar, you can actually place word or the word, right? And we're actually very familiar with this concept when we look at John, when we look at the Targums, the word, the memra, right? The first among them became the word, and that word became a great animal and had great black horns on its head, and the Lord of the sheep rejoiced over it and over all the oxen, right? We could stop there and be satisfied with what's happening right here. But if we do some sleuthing, and we know that Enoch was written in Aramaic because we have that in the Dead Sea Scrolls. We have an Aramaic version, not of this section, but there is an Aramaic version of Enoch. So if we know any Aramaic, Rema, remember Re'em is Hebrew for the wild ox. Rema is Aramaic. Now, if the word Rema was translated into Greek, it would still be Rema. It would be a transliteration. So they would keep it the same, but it would have the Greek meaning because the Greeks have the same word, but it means something different. Almost like our number 9 in English, right? If we were to translate that into German, right? It's as if the German people saw 9 and kept it, but then changed the context of it to be, what does 9 mean in German? No?
9, yes, I think so. I think you're right. 9.
Right. So it's not exactly the same as our 9. And so what's happening, I think personally, and what a lot of scholars think is happening here with this word nagar, is that originally Enoch was written in Aramaic or Hebrew, but it's Rema. In Greek, it would be Rema, but Rema in Greek means word, right? So it still fits for us because we know that the Messiah is the word, right? But if you use the Ge'ez word for word, it becomes nagar. So that's why we have nagar, the word, or you can translate this as the wild ox. So
cool.
Either or, they both fit. But for now, I want to use the imagery of the wild ox because that's kind of what it's describing, right? A white bull becomes a wild ox with great black horns. That's what's fitting with Deuteronomy. That's what's fitting with the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. That's what's fitting here in this animal apocalypse. So we see clearly in Enoch that the Messiah is portrayed as a Ra'em. Now, if you don't believe Enoch, which is totally fine if you don't, there is a similar there's a similar, I guess, play out of actions happening when it's describing the Messiah in Zechariah chapter 12, 8 through 10. Now, remember the animals coming to the bull and becoming like the bull, and then the bull turning into something else. It says, in that day, so this is talking about the end times, this is talking about Messiah. It says, in that day, Yehovah will defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the one that is feeble among them will be like David, and the house of David will be like Elohim, the angel of Yehovah, before them. And in that day, I will set about to destroy all nations that come against Jerusalem. I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplication, so that they will look upon me whom they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only son, and they will weep bitterly over him like the weeping over a firstborn. Right, so now we're getting more firstborn imagery here because we know that Joseph and his tribe are the firstborn. And actually, this is kind of a throwback here in Zechariah to Jacob, to Jacob weeping over Joseph.
Yeah.
When he thought that he had died.
Right.
So here in Zechariah, we have that the people will be like David, but what will David be like? Right? David meaning the Messiah, because it says in that day. The people will be like David, the house of David will be like the angel of Yehovah. So very interesting, especially if you believe that Yeshua is the angel of Yehovah. I know not everybody does, but there's weird imagery here that the house of David in the end times will be like the angel of Yehovah. Similar to Enoch, all of the animals becoming white bulls. I wanted to talk about here in Isaiah. So here's some interesting verses that we could talk about relating the oxes into the Tanakh. So Isaiah chapter 65, 24 to 25, it says, "And it will come to pass that before they call, I will answer. And while they are still speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb will graze together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. And dust will be the serpent's food. They will do no harm or evil in the body of in my holy mountain, says Yehovah." Right? So if you know anything about the animal imagery, it's portraying the lion, which is representation of Judah, being like the ox. It will eat straw. It will be peaceful, right? Because what's the difference between the normal, and this is the shore. This is not the Re'em. This is the shore. So what's the difference between an ox and a lion? An ox is generally peaceful. They don't kill people. The shore, not the Re'em. And so it's juxtaposing the lion and the ox here, which could be a representation of Judah and Joseph. In the end times, when Yeshua is done being like a lion, he'll be peaceful, right?
Wow.
I want to show you guys, I'm going to switch this over. I wanted to show you guys something interesting about Psalm 22. Let's see if I can pull that over here. Let me know, Noble.
Yep.
Can you guys see that?
Yep, got it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you guys remember when Yeshua was on the pole or the cross or whatever you think he was on.
Right. It's crucifixion, right?
Right, and he says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Right, and people look at this as like, oh, like Yeshua, this was like a moment of weakness for him, and things like that, and it very well could have been. Other people have taken this to be that he is quoting the psalm, and while he didn't quote the whole psalm, generally in Hebrew culture, when you wanted to quote something, you would just quote the first part of the passage, but it would be like you quoted the whole passage, and the person who picked up on that would understand that you're meaning to quote the whole passage, right? And so keep in mind the ox, right?
Okay.
It says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Far from my deliverance are the words of my groaning. Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I have no rest. You are holy, O you who are enthroned upon the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted. They trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried out and were delivered. In you they trusted and were not disappointed. But I am a worm and not a man, a reproach of men and despised by the people. All who see me sneer at me. They separate with the lip. They wag the head, saying, commit yourself to Yehovah. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him, because he delights in him. Yet you are he who brought me forth from the womb. You made me trust when upon my mother's breast. Upon you I was cast from birth. You have been my God from my mother's womb. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is none to help. Many bulls have surrounded me. Strong bulls of Bashan have encircled me. And they have opened their mouth at me as a raving and roaring lion. So if you're not familiar with this, he's telling you that people from the northern kingdom, the bulls, and people from the southern kingdom, the lions, are surrounding him in this moment of pain and agony. And we actually see that in Yeshua's crucifixion. He says, I'm poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within me. My strength is dried up like potsherd, and my mouth cleaves to my jaws, and you lay me in the dust of death. For dogs have surrounded me. These are the Romans, the dogs. A band of evildoers has encompassed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones. They stare at me, they divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. But you, O Yehovah, be not far off. O you my help, hasten to my assistance. Deliver my soul from the sword, my only life from the power of the dog. Save me from the lion's mouth, from the horns of the wild ox. You answer me. I will tell of your name to my brethren in the midst of the assembly. I will praise you. You who fear Yehovah, praise him. All you descendants of Yaakov, glorify him and stand in awe of him, all you descendants of Israel. For he has not despised, nor abhorred the afflicted, the affliction of the afflicted, nor has he hidden his face from them. But when he cried to him for help, he heard. From you comes my praise in the great assembly. I shall pay my vows before those who fear him. The afflicted will eat and be satisfied. Those who seek him will praise Yehovah. Let your heart live forever. At the ends of the earth, all the ends of the earth will remember and turn to Yehovah, and all the families of the nations will worship before you. For the kingdom is Yehovah's, and he rules over the nations. All the prosperous of the earth will eat and worship. All those who go down to the dust will bow before him, even he who cannot keep his soul alive. Posterity will serve him. It will be told of Yehovah to the coming generation. They will come and declare his righteousness to people who will be born, that he has performed it. Right, so this is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeshua is essentially quoting this whole psalm on the crucifixion when he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? He's wanting you to go to the Psalms and look at this psalm. And something caught my eye, right? We saw the bulls, right? The bulls of Bashan. The bulls represent the northern kingdom. Bashan is an area that was taken from Og, right? Og of Bashan, and was taken and given to parts of the northern kingdom. So we have the bulls of Bashan, right? They're opening wide their mouth at me as a raving and roaring lion. So now we have this lion imagery as well surrounding him, and these is the southern kingdom, the Jews.
Right.
Then he says, dogs have surrounded me, right? That's the Romans.
Yeah.
And then he says, save me from the lion's mouth. These are the Jews.
Right.
And then he says, from the horns of the wild ox, you answered me. So we have something here. God's voice answered him from the horns of the wild ox. Now, if you're not familiar with this concept as well, which we'll talk about a little bit, is in the tabernacle, you have the Ark of the Covenant, right?
Right.
And you also have two altars. And on these altars, you have an altar for incense and you have the altar for the sacrifices. Right. Now, the thing that ties these altars together is that on the edges of these altars, on the altar of incense, there's two horns on the ends of the altar of incense. So it's believed, especially in rabbinical writings and also just in Jewish literature in general, and in the Tanakh, that God received the incense from in between the horns of the altar. And also the altar of the sacrifices has four horns on each corner. And it's believed that God accepted these sacrifices in between the four horns. And so for Yeshua, for the psalmist, for David to say that God answered him from the horns of the wild oxen, we're talking about Yeshua on the cross. And this is Yeshua's sacrifice, right? It's imagery of the sacrifice of the presence of God in between the two horns, and actually too in between the two cherubim. If you look at the picture of the cherubim, if you search it on Google, it's the angels overlaying their wings over the top
Right.
of the ark, but they look like horns. If you look at them, the
Yeah.
angel's wings portray horns similar to the re'em, to the ox, because the ox's horns are in the same shape. And so there's a lot of imagery going on here.
Well, even the wings of the cherubim were also touching the walls of the Holy of Holies. So it's a very it's a spectacular scene. I would imagine that you got each cherubim, two of their wings are touching the tips of each other almost, and the other two are touching the walls of the Holy of Holies, and must have been a massive picture. And another thing, Isaiah, when you talk about when you go back to the wild oxen, you said that the lion represents the southern kingdom, and you also mentioned that Yosef was related to the wild ox, the aurochs. The northern kingdom is represented by Ephraimites, Joseph's children. So he was actually being crucified, and he was again looked down upon by almost everybody, by the northern and the southern kingdom. They were surrounding him because he was pretty much alone in a way.
Right. Yeshua says a prophet is not accepted in his hometown.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so much imagery and so much connections here. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I remember that my professor, my Jewish professor, he would say that the requirements to be the Messiah is that one of the requirements that you'd have to come from the tribe of Judah. I mean, from David, and the Davidic crown was again one way of proving that you were a possible candidate for the messiahship. Unfortunately,
right.
in David's lineage through Solomon, it goes to Jeconiah, or also known as Coniah, and then that's where you got the curse. And now it's actually, that lineage is actually forfeited because God told him you would never have any child sitting upon the throne, on David's throne. And
right.
And yet the Davidic lineage still was carried on through his mother Mary, because she was also from the tribe, right, of David. Right. And then now you're pointing out Yosef, the Mashiach ben Yosef, the son, the Messiah from Joseph, and this is telling me that there is more requirements to becoming the Messiah than just the Davidic lineage. Now there's also a Josephite requirement that you have to be from that tribe as well, and isn't that amazing, right?
Right. Yeah, it's very stringent, right?
Yeah. I mean, how many people could say that they're from the tribe of Joseph? They're also from the tribe of David, or in this case, Judah, and and that it doesn't end there. I think there is even more requirements to become the Messiah, the true Messiah, and those are other things that I'm thinking we're going to talk about that you may cover in the future.
Right. Well, I can cover that just a little bit right now. I don't have it pulled up because I wasn't prepared for that question. So thanks,
sorry
Noble.
about that.
But no, just, no, you're good. No, I'm just. I have a. I can probably pull it up later as we're talking.
Okay. Yeah, we have another 40 minutes to talk. So I just wanted to keep the conversation going because I'm not sure if there's a lot of questions out there in chat land, but I mean, I'm ringing with you. I'm thinking about, wow, to be Messiah, there were so many false messiahs that came, and if they couldn't prove their lineage from Judah to David, or from Joseph to Ephraim, I mean, and that's just two messianic requirements.
I can read some of the comments. There's been some great conversation in the chat, Isaiah. I'm going to grab the mic so people can hear me. Shay says, according to Dr. George M. Lamsa, who translated the Aramaic Peshitta into English, when Jesus is on the cross, he cries out, my God, for this cause was I spared." So I thought that was interesting. I didn't know about that.
For this cause I was spared.
Yeah. So I think that's.
But he wasn't spared. He was sacrificed, you know.
Oh, wait, I have the mic. Sorry.
Like he was sacrificed like the shore, you know. The firstborn was meant for sacrifice, for the blood to be put on the altar. You know, which is kind of bizarre.
Well, maybe it's in reference to, you remember we talked about the horn earlier, and it said that he's seen his redemption and he's seen the defeat of his enemies. So maybe that could be a reference to he was spared in that his resurrection, he saw that he would be resurrected. Maybe he doubted for a second that he would be resurrected. I don't know, you know. Yeshua is just as human as me and you, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, he cried out, right? Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, right? I mean, my God, you know, why have you forsaken me? And that, you know, that can have many interpretations to what he said there. But it's just interesting to see all of this coming up now. You know, I mean, there's so much more mysteries that are being displayed and shown, and it kind of makes you really think now how Yeshua had to go through so much, and yet how he also had to go through the requirements to prove that he was the one true Son of God, right, the Messiah.
Yeah, so there,
right.
I mean, the conversation in the chat is there. That was one of the major comments that I noticed, and also they're sharing a lot of scripture. What you're sharing as well, Isaiah, and everyone is very they're very active. Like they're right there with you, Isaiah. Did a great job presenting.
Oh, yeah. So I also want to comment on the horns of the altar, because you know when you were talking about the horns of the two altars, remember when Solomon took over from King David, and remember General Joab?
Right.
Right? Where did he run to? Where did he hide to when he knew he was in trouble? He ran to the temple, and he was holding on to what? The horn of the altar before he was slain. Kind of like
to supplicate mercy.
Yeah, if you're gonna kill me, then I'll be a sacrifice to God because I'm here at the altar. You know what I mean? And Joab did a lot of bad stuff, but he also did some good stuff too. So again, funny that Joab would hold on to the altar, or the horn of the altar, before he was killed. So again, just so many pictures in the scriptures that are coming to light, and I'm thinking, wow, why would he do that? Why would he hold the horn? And now you're sharing about the horns. I'm thinking, oh, interesting,
Right, and it's almost as if the horns, remember, we talked about the horns and the branches being connected with each other when it comes to the Messiah. So it almost makes me wonder, and this is just me thinking out loud, it almost makes me wonder if the horns of the altar are supposed to be representations of the Messiah's sacrifice.
Yeah.
We see. Oh no, go ahead.
No,
if you had a thought.
I'm tracking with you.
I was just thinking the branches and the horns are interchangeable, as we see with the Messiah, but then, as you just stated, they're a supplication of mercy, right? When God accepts the sacrifice, it's like a relief because he's showing you mercy.
Yes.
You don't deserve for your sacrifice to be given, but he's showing you mercy. And for David and ultimately Yeshua to reference that in the Psalms as he's dying, the voice of the Lord that answered his prayer from between the horns, it's almost as if this is God saying, your sacrifice is accepted. And then now he's relieved in the Psalms, and he starts talking about how God would, never forsake them and everything else.
Interesting. I did want to comment also, when you brought up Psalm 22, was that a rabbinical teaching that talked about how Yeshua recited the actual entire Psalm of 22 while he was on the cross or on the crucifix?
So it's not necessarily a rabbinical teaching, but you see in a lot of rabbinical literature,
right.
And especially in the Midrash, the Talmud, and other Jewish writings, that when you're reading them, whoever's speaking will say the first part of the scripture
Right.
and then move on, but then they'll talk about parts of the scripture that they didn't quote. So when they said the first part of the scripture, they
Right.
were meaning to quote the whole thing. And so it's not necessarily that that's what it means when Yeshua did that, but given the fact that Yeshua, he followed customs in Israel, and I know that's kind of like it can be a point of contention for people, right? To think that Yeshua followed any sort of tradition, but in reality, if you look at the Gospels, right? When the Pharisees are asking Yeshua why his disciples aren't washing their hands before they eat, right? Their contention is with the disciples. Their contention is not with Yeshua. Why? Because Yeshua probably washed his hands. Otherwise, they would have brought it against him. We see Yeshua is talking about the phylacteries, right? So
Right.
the tefillin, right? The thing that the Jews wrap around their arms and then they wrap around their heads.
Right.
Yeshua talks about the phylacteries at the time because the Pharisees would wear them,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So Yeshua, he tells them, you fatten your phylacteries and you lengthen your tzitzits, which is the corner fringes,
Yeah. The tassels.
so that you could be seen, so that everybody can see you.
Yeah, and
right?
that you're supposedly holy, right? I mean,
Right. So the tzitzits are a commandment, right?
yes.
The
yes.
tzitzits are a command. So what Yeshua is doing, he's not telling you not to wear tzitzits. He's telling you, don't be flashy with the tzitzits. That's what he's telling the Pharisees.
Right,
He's saying,
right.
don't make your tzitzits as long as the floor and flash them around and stuff like that. And he uses the tefillin in the same breath. So he wasn't convicting them for using tefillin or phylacteries or whatever you want to call them.
Right.
He was just telling them, keep it private, keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
It's not something to be shown for. It's for your personal relationship, right?
Do it
So
in your prayer
there-
closet, right?
Right. So there's these customs that Yeshua seems to have followed. He goes to the temple at the Feast of Dedication. So now he's going to the temple when the Jews are gathering for Hanukkah. So the Hanukkah is not commanded in the scriptures, right? But you see Yeshua attending a Hanukkah party.
Yeah.
Or he knows where the Jews are going to be. They're going to be at the temple because it's the Feast of Dedication. So there are traditions that I think Yeshua, living in that time period, would have followed, and I think that this is one of them. Quoting one verse in order to mean the whole passage.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you for explaining that, because that is actually pretty cool. I could see how a lot of times in the Bible, in the canonized scriptures, a lot of times it's abbreviated, so and it's shortened when actually they're talking about maybe the entire rendering of the scripture passage, or in this case, the psalm. So that actually makes sense.
Right, and you can see that the psalm is a direct reflection of the crucifixion scene. So, like, it's kind of like, yes, I'm alluding to that's what he did, but you can see the connections when you read it.
Right.
Even down to them, casting lots for his garments. Like, it's all there.
Yeah, and which again shows how accurate it is, right? So.
Right. I wanted to talk.
Yeah, I know you.
Sorry, man.
I know you got a few more things you want to share. I just want to follow up. When Shay mentioned, my God, that passage from the Peshitta. I know the Peshitta is a like 10th century, I believe, scripture that talks about how it says that you saved me. How did it go again? Let's see the text. Shay. It says, my God, for this I was spared. That's what the Peshitta shares. And thank you, Shay, for sharing that. Yeah, I actually I actually read the Peshitta too. What is it? That's Coptic, right, Isaiah?
It's Syriac.
Syriac, yeah, it's Syriac. Okay.
Which is it's a version of Aramaic.
Yeah. So again, yeah, interesting that the Peshitta would read that. For I was spared. For this I was spared. Oh, I see. For his life, he was spared until this point where he was going to be sacrificed. Interesting. Okay, so all right. So I just want to do a shout out for that. So please continue. I know you're going to go on to what, Job 39. Isaiah.
Yes.
Or were you gonna? Was that what was after Psalm 22? I know I'm looking at your
Well,
notes here.
I was wondering if that was in reference the Syriac. I wonder if the Syriac was quoting Exodus 9:16, where it says, "I have spared you for a purpose to show you my power and to spread my fame throughout the earth."
Oh, that's deep.
So I wonder if the Syriac was quoting a different verse.
Oh, okay. That is interesting that you would bring that up. I was given this text message from Shay, and I only got a part of it, so it looks like it's a commentary talking about it. Well, I guess it's a commentary on the various translations of when Yeshua cried out, my God," because one has, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" which is coming from, I think this is from the King James, and then you read down a little bit. The Peshitta says, my God, for this I was spared." Again, different renderings from different translations. Wow. And this is a Bible that's again, he shares this, the Bible from the ancient Eastern manuscripts containing the Old and New Testament, translated from
Right.
the Peshitta, the Authorized Bible of the Church of the East by George Lamsa. So yeah, thanks Shay for bringing it up, adding fuel to the conversation.
Right. No, awesome comment.
Passage.
I do want to.
Was that Exodus? You said. What passage that you're recalling? You were thinking about?
Well, as soon as you said it, it made me think about Exodus chapter 9, verse 16. I'm not saying that that's what it is,
Oh,
but
yeah,
it
yeah,
made me remember that. And it says, "And indeed, indeed, for this cause have I raised you up, to show in you my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth."
Yeah, I hear. I'm reading it right now. Right, and I'm reading it in the ESV,
Yeah.
but I see what you're saying. Wow. And it's so funny how
Right.
how things are related to other things. You know what I mean? Other passages. So, again, it's just some of the writings are so deep that you really got to do a lot of research.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. It's the gospel is very simple, but the details are very complicated. Like, it's very simple when you're looking at it from
Yeah.
a distance.
Yeah.
But if you're really like trying to get down and inspect it, it's like super complicated. It's like a whole web of things, and everything is connected to each other.
Yeah, and I really believe this is where God calls us to become like Bereans, to search out His Word, to find the hidden truths, the nuggets of gold that are contained within the simple gospel story, and yet it goes far deeper than anybody could imagine, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, we have a
It's
good,
really interesting.
yeah, we have a deep crowd of people that are just like that too. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, that is good. Continuing on to Job, I found something very interesting about the wild ox. Remember, I talked about this is when you remember when Job is talking to God, and he's kind of at his breaking point, and he's kind of asking him like, "God, why'd you do this to me, God?"
Yeah.
And then God tells him, "Okay, stand up, Job, gird your loins like a man." And then he gives it to him, and
Yeah.
he's asking him like a lot of questions, like, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?
Right.
Where were you when I?" So he's telling Job, and this is a part of that conversation. And he's talking to Job about the Oryx. He's talking to Job about the wild ox. And listen to the wording, because and this matches up in Hebrew too. It's very strange, but just listen to the wording here.
Okay.
It says, "Will the wild ox consent to serve you? Will he spend the night at your manger?
No.
Can you bind the wild ox in a furrow with ropes? Or will he harrow the valleys after you?" Will you trust him because his strength is great and leave your labor to him? Will you have faith in him that he will return your seed and gather it from the threshing floor?
Wow.
And then he goes on to talk about another animal. But look at the wording. Look at the verbiage here when he's talking about the wild ox to Job, and especially, will he spend the night at your manger?
Yeah.
He's a wild
Yeshua-
ox. No, he's not. none of them.
Yeshua, right? He's a wild ox, but then we have Yeshua, who is the Messiah, who is the representation of these oxes, and he's spending the night in the manger.
Yeah, and when he
He's
becomes
bound.
and later
Right.
when he becomes king, he will have those horns where he will be royalty and he will be all powerful, and at the same time, like you mentioned earlier, the shore was a domesticated, laborious creature that served man, and yet in the end, the wild ox becomes, fierce and mighty and great, and no one can contain him, and you can't expect that from the king of the cosmos, So it's interesting how he came as a man and resurrected as the Almighty, the second person of the Godhead, right?
Right. And there's just these interesting parallels here, right? We know, will he harrow the valleys after you? We know Yeshua's going to be at the valley of Megiddo. Will you trust him because his strength is great and leave your labor to him? All right. We knew that the Torah was very hard for us to keep perfectly, and yet we give our labor to Yeshua, and Yeshua pulls us the rest of the way, right? So I don't know how everybody feels. Personally, for me, I follow the Torah, and so for me, I follow the Torah as best as I can. But there's a certain point that's too much for me. Not that the Torah is too hard to follow, but I'm a human being. It gets to a point. There's just certain things that I can't do, and so I need help to push through the rest of the way, and that's where Yeshua comes in. He fills the gap.
Yeah, isn't that where the scripture says that, take my yoke and I will take your yoke, because your yoke is heavy and burden laden, but mine is light. Right? So, wow.
Right. So
Wow.
he says, will you trust him, the ox, because his strength is great, and leave your labor to him? Will you have faith in him that he will return your seed and gather it from the threshing floor? Now, it's really interesting here because he's talking about the gathering back of Job's seed, and Job's seed is a part of Abraham. It's still an Abrahamic seed because he is from the line of Ishmael.
Yes.
And so, you kind of get that through other sources, but he's from the line of Ishmael, and he's a righteous man, right? He's the most righteous man on the earth at the time period that he's alive, is what it says. And so he's asking him, will you have faith in the ox to return your seed and gather it from your threshing floor? Now, the threshing floor is very interesting because the threshing floor is shorthand for the temple grounds. And you see this because David purchases the threshing floor in order for Solomon to build the temple. The threshing floor is always like this symbolic thing of God's worship, of being in the area where God wants you to be for his worship.
Wow.
And if you just look throughout the scriptures for the different references to the threshing floor, it's very interesting.
So-
They mourn at the threshing floor.
They sacrifice.
There's worship,
Yep.
sacrifice at the threshing floor.
Right.
It says, like in First Chronicles, the angel of the Lord commanded Gad to say that David should go up and erect an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor
Right.
of Onan.
Wow.
David appointed the threshing floor of Onan, and then we get this weird imagery here that God is going to thresh the people, or he'll have the people thresh, like in Isaiah it says, "Oh, my threshed people, my afflicted ones, what have I heard from the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel? I announce to you." It says in Matthew, right? So this is Yeshua talking about what's going to happen in the end times. It says he's got his winnowing fork in his hand, and he will clear his threshing floor and gather his wheat into the barn, but the chaff he will burn with the unquenchable fire. And so this threshing floor is an area, and this is why they reference the threshing floor for this area at the temple, right? We have the different judgments are taking place at the temple.
Wow.
In the end times, and he's threshing the wheat. And for those of you guys that don't know what it is, he's throwing the wheat in the air with a fork, and parts of it are breaking apart, and he's taking the best parts of the wheat, and this winnowing is separating it on the threshing floor. So he's separating the wheat from the chaff.
Yes.
Right? He puts the wheat in the storehouse into the barn, but the chaff gets burned.
Right.
And so this is like
Sheeps and the
this is-
goats. The tares and the wheat. Right. I mean, it's a separation, right?
right. And so when we go back to Job, right? Because Yeshua is already saying this is what's going to happen. I'm coming with the fork on the threshing floor. This is all going to happen, right? And I'm going to separate the wheat from the chaff. And Job is talking about, will you have faith in the ox to gather your seed and gather it from the threshing floor? And so this is just an interesting verse that I thought was very thought-provoking in our discussion about, Joseph and the Messiah coming from Joseph and the ox. Just strange parallels. There's a lot of verses, guys. Go out there and do like a Blue Letter Bible or Bible Hub or whatever you guys use, and just type in oxen in this and look at all the verses of the oxen, and look at the parallels with these new lenses that you guys have of the ox representing Joseph, Ephraim, Manasseh. Look at all of these symbols, because the Bible's filled with symbology.
Yes.
Revelation is heavily symbolic.
You think that Job, see, chapter 39 is towards the end of his book already. He's getting tired. God has been allowing him to suffer for quite a few years, from what I've studied, and he's getting tired. And yet here, like many people today, are getting tired of the hardships, the things that we go through in life, and like Job, we're questioning God. Are you there? Are you really there? I thought, I was serving you and doing what you wanted me to do, and yet I'm still facing, turmoil and hardships and suffering. And yet God says, do you not know about the wild ox? Do you not know, that I will take care of you? Trust in my strength, right? I mean, it's funny that this could be a sermon all by itself, Job 39, 9 to 10, and using the oxen, the aurochs, as a representation of what God will do for you, and that no one can bridle him, no one can outpower him, and yet he will be there for you if we're willing to trust in him and continue to trust in him, right?
Right.
Wow, it's heavy.
Right.
Never had an ox. I never had an ox sermon before, but this is something that has a lot of potential.
Well, there's a lot of things with oxes, right? Like being equally yoked.
Right.
So then now we're being referred to as oxes, and don't muzzle the ox as he works, right? Paul uses that for himself and for other people that are teaching. Go ahead.
No, it's just funny because even pagan worship involves oxen as well. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's just an animal, a beast of power, and yet burden as well, depending if it's a shore or an aurochs.
Right, and that's actually what I wanted to get into right now, because this is the other side of this conversation about the ox.
Okay.
Now, because we see in the scriptures. Let me see here. Let me see if I can walk it to that window. Okay, we see in the scriptures that. Oh my goodness. Okay, we see in the scriptures that the Israelites are worshiping oxes, bulls, golden calves,
Right.
and they are calling the golden calf God. When you see in Exodus, when they built the golden calf, Aaron tells the people, "This is Jehovah your God who brought you out of Egypt," right? And he's talking about the bull. Now, I know we often think like, Aaron, what are you doing? What in the world is going on? Why are you guys worshiping an ox? Why do you think that this is Jehovah your God? Like, what is going through your mind right now? Surely you cannot be this thick-skulled, right?
Right.
And you have to understand, it's easy for these people to do these things because of what we're talking about, because of the messianic expectation
Right.
that is on these people. These people see that God led them out of Egypt like a shore. Like, that is literally what Balaam is saying when he's talking to the people, and he says that God led them out of Egypt like a wild ox.
Wow. Never thought about that.
These people have a faith, a messianic hope in the wild ox, but where they erred is that they made images of him and they worshiped him, thinking that this was God, when in reality, God doesn't want you to make images. He gives you imagery, but he doesn't want you to make images for yourself.
That's deep. That's really funny, because the Egyptians, the Israelite people that left Egypt 400 years after Joseph was there doing his thing, and Joseph, again, Mashiach ben Yosef, right, was described as the wild ox in a way, right? So.
Right, and look at the horns on that thing. I mean, I'm not saying it looked exactly like that.
Yeah, but that's massive, right? That's massive. But wow, interesting. I never thought about that. I never thought about Aaron actually saying, "Okay, well, do you guys know about the wild ox, the aurochs, and that's supposedly our God." But I can see what you're saying is, don't make an image, but here's the imagery of what my creation represents me as. A truly wild ox out in the forest. That's me. I'm like that. I'm that strong, that powerful. I cannot be contained by anything, any man, and yet you make an image of me when you leave Egypt. What's the first thing you do? You make an image of a god. Interesting.
Now, there's also Baal, which is another entity related to the bull.
Right.
That Israel so easily fell into because of the messianic expectation. Not that the messianic expectation was bad, but because they're expecting a bull ox figure to come and save them.
Right.
Because this is the imagery that they're getting from Joseph. And you have to remember, especially for like the Samaritans, for the people in Moses' time, they didn't have David. They didn't have a Davidic, expectation. They had a Judah kind of an expectation, depending on how you read Genesis 49. But their main expectation, because of the words that are being used and the imagery that is being used and the birthright and the blessings being passed down onto Joseph, they were expecting their Messiah to be like this ox, this Re'em, that ox with the big horns. And so Baal is another big issue, and is actually a very big issue for the tribes of Ephraim. The northern kingdom, the reason why they were dispersed was because they were making these images in all of their high places in the land.
Wow.
They're expecting their Messiah to be like this thing, and for those of you guys that think that this is like kind of a confusing, that they're trying to worship the Messiah and they're making images of him, and like, why would God think that was bad, or this is too far of a stretch? In the Targums, I can't pull it up right now, I forgot, I accidentally closed the tab for it. In the Targums, in the Aramaic Targums, if you guys have them from Zen, or if you guys can get them open online, or however you guys are studying, in Genesis, right before Noah's flood, it says something very interesting in the Aramaic Targums. It says, and in those days the sons of men made images of the Memra and worshiped them, and it was evil.
Oh, really?
Yes, I've seen that in the Targum, Isaiah. I was excited to hear you quoting that. And also, you were quoting from Genesis, right? Targum?
Right, the Bereshit, I think right before chapter 6, or right the beginning of chapter 6.
Is that Neophiti, or is that the kind Targum Jonathan? Which do you remember?
I think it's Targum Jonathan, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's in Targum Neophiti as well.
Right.
Because I think that maybe a chapter, or maybe it's in that same chapter you quoted, but where it talks about, it was in the days of one of the patriarchs, where it says where they began to call upon the name of the Lord, and that is totally different in the Targum. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'll find the passage for you. Hold on a sec.
Yeah, you'll have to find the passage. I'm not 100%, but this is not a just for everyone. This is not a new idea. Like, I'm just not springing this forth, from my own head. It says in the Targum that they were making images of the word of the Memra, and they were worshiping it, and God said that it was blasphemous. And so you see Israel just continuing on this when they make the golden calf, when they serve Baal, when they give their kids to Moloch. Like, these are all bull entities, because they're expecting the bull Messiah. They're expecting this Mashiach, like the ox with the horns. And so this is why these people always fell into it. It wasn't because they were dumb, or they were thick-skinned, or they just wanted to worship willy-nilly. The most dangerous idol is the idol that you create after God.
Right.
If you believe that let's say you create an idol of whatever, if you believe that idol is the God of the Bible, then you truly believe that is the most dangerous place you can be, because you will defend that idol, you will believe in that idol, right. You will follow that idol to the ends of the earth, because you believe that it's the God of the Bible.
And what is the first commandment? Is not to, or second, not to create any graven images, right? So
right.
Yeah, interesting. I just want to mention that for our audience, so some people may not know what Memra is. When you read the Gospel of John, chapter 1, where it's talking about the Word, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Memra is Aramaic, in the Aramaic language, and that Memra is equated to the Word. Okay, just for those of you that are not sure what Memra means, it's just the Targum is a Aramaic writing of the Hebraic writing of Genesis, for example. So just so you understand that different languages, different terminology, yet there's the same understanding of what they mean. Thanks, Isaiah.
No, thanks, man. Thanks for clarifying that for the audience. I get so caught up. I always assume everyone just knows what I'm talking about.
I would like that. Sometimes I don't think I can even keep up with you, man. Jeez.
I don't know about all that. But yeah. So, like I said, we often don't put ourselves in the shoes of the people of Israel and why they would do certain things. I feel like sometimes we read the Bible and we're just kind of like, wow, those people are so dumb. I would never do that. And There's good reason, not that it's a right reason, but there's good reason why these people fell for it.
Right.
And so the Hasatan perverts. He takes things and he perverts them.
Oh yeah, and he just does it very subtly. I mean, he'll change a word or two sometimes, and it'll change the direction of where you're going.
Right. I mean, a good example of this is the bronze serpent. If nobody's familiar with this, Moshe was with the people of Israel, and they were attacked by fiery serpents, and they were bitten, and they were dying from the poison of these fiery serpents.
Right.
And
that was following their disobedience, right? So.
Right, and Moshe was asking God to help save the people, and God instructs Moshe to make a bronze serpent.
Right.
And for the people to look upon this bronze serpent when he lifted it up in order to heal their ailments. And so Moshe does what he's told, even though despite it seems like it's idolatry to be making the image of something, he does what God tells him. The people look on it. Everything is kosher. And the reason it's kosher is because you're not to make an image for yourself. But when God tells you to do something, you just do it. Yes. When God's telling you to make an image, it's uncomfortable to say, but this is what's happening. God's asking Moshe to make an image. But the verse about not making images is not to make an image for yourself. But when God asks you to make an image, it's different. Apparently, it's different.
Yeah.
So what happened to the bronze serpent? Well, when you go into Chronicles, you read about, I think it's King Josiah.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
He
But I think
dismantled
it's
it or crushed it or something like that, right?
Right. King Josiah is becoming angry at all of these things that the people are doing. And what does he do? He goes to where that serpent is at because those people have made an altar for it and they begin to worship it, and they even gave it a name.
Yes. Right. What was that name?
And I think it was Nachatan. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, I'm not sure too. I remember reading about that, but he did eventually destroy that image, right? So.
Right, because people were abusing. It's I was close. It was Nehushtan.
Ah, good call. Good call.
They gave it a name. It was destroyed by King Hezekiah, not Josiah. King Hezekiah. And this bronze serpent seems like initially that it is idolatry, but it's not. It became idolatry when the people abused it and began to worship it and do outside of God's instructions to this bronze serpent, resulting in its destruction. So I would say the same thing with the bull imagery. God gives us the imagery of the bull for the Josephite Messiah. We are not to abuse that imagery. We're not to make idols or anything like that. We have a lane that we're supposed to stay in. Right. And these people were moving outside the lane.
Ah, yes. I think Lisa wants to come back in and share about the Targum. Isaiah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Genesis, what does it say here? Genesis chapter 4, verse 26. So in regular Bible, just in King James, it says, "As for Seth, to him also a son was born, and he named him Enosh. Then men began to call on the name of the Lord." Okay, so that verse, and you look in the Targums, there's the translations get a little bit more specific, because what does that mean? But then men begin to call on the name of the Lord, on the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh? And I mean, why weren't they calling on the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh in Adam's time? Like, why did it have to wait to be Enosh? But it doesn't really mean that they were calling. It says in, so in various Targums, such as, I'm trying to name some of these. Okay, like in the Onkelos, that one says, "To Seth also was born a son, and he named him Enosh. Then men began to call idols by the name of Adonai." So this a little bit more detail, there's another one that says, let's see.
I have the Targum of Neophiti pulled up right now.
Okay,
I
that
think
one's-
everyone on the screen can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
If not, I can zoom in. But it says here, Seth there also bore a son, and he called his name Enosh. Then the sons of man began to make idols for themselves
There.
and to surname them by the name of the Memra of the Lord, the word of the
The
Lord.
word of the
There we
Lord.
go. Okay, that was what I
Wow.
was looking for. And then also, if you look at Legends of the Jews, it gives a little bit more detail about that, even from Book 1, the Legends of the Jews, about who Enosh was. And he said, it says, Enosh took 6 clods of earth, mixed them, and molded them, and formed an image of dust and clay. But, said the people, this image does not walk, nor does it possess any breath of life. He then essayed to show them how God breathed the breath of life into the nostrils of Adam, but when he began to blow his breath into the image he had formed, Satan entered into it, and the figure walked, and the people of his time, who had been inquiring these matters of Enosh, went astray after it, saying, what is the difference between bowing down before this image and paying homage to a man? So the generation of Enosh were thus the first idol worshippers, and the punishment for their folly was not delayed long. God caused the sea to transgress its bounds, and a portion of the earth was flooded. We read about that in the book of Joshua, how like 1/3 of the earth was flooded during this time. And this was the time also when the mountains became rocks, and the dead bodies of men began to decay. And still another consequence of the sin of idolatry was that the countenances of the men of the following generations were no longer in the likeness and image of God, as the countenances of Adam, Seth, and Enosh had been. They resembled centaurs and apes, and the demons lost their fear of men. So that's kind of a strange thing there at
That's
the end.
wild. Yeah.
But,
That's
the rest of it was, I thought it was pretty interesting to give, because we don't get that detail anywhere else about Enosh. I never knew who that was.
yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting
Yeah, so
stuff.
glad you
But
pulled that one up though, Isaiah. I was looking for that one. So now you can do another deep dive. on that.
but yeah, that's kind of all I have for today. If anyone had questions, or if anyone wants to bring something up about the oxen or bulls or anything like that, or
Lisa will
you
check
know,
that out. Yeah. Again, our the people that are following us are on the chat. Some good comments, good response. Mankula says the sin of Jeroboam that got the house of Israel scattered was the golden calves in Dan and Bethel. So yeah, thanks, Mang. That's true. Again, Satan is very active in influencing man and trying to get them to do things that goes against what God commanded not to do. So again, it's a constant struggle. It's a constant understanding, because we're talking about generations and generations of people that have, again, been called to life, and they will take their own understanding of God and how they want to worship Him, and they will do things that are either kosher or not, you know,
It's an
one or
interesting
two
word.
ways, and maybe even in between. You know, it's not always black and white. Sometimes there's gray areas in there too, right, Isaiah?
right.
Yeah, there's some great comments about your teaching, Isaiah. Everyone just is super excited. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. There's no particular questions for you, but maybe you want to go back later. Well, I don't know. Are you? Yeah, the chat will be attached to this, right, John?
Yeah,
I don't know.
well, the chat's at that. I mean,
Okay.
for review, well, you said have to wait
maybe
24 hours,
Yeah,
right?
maybe in 24 hours you can take a look at the chat, Isaiah, and see all the awesome comments that people are leaving for you and your teaching. And we definitely would love to have you come back in the future.
Yeah.
If you
Oh well, thanks,
if
guys.
you have
No,
time.
but,
appreciate that.
But Isaiah, when it comes to the topic of Mashiach ben Yosef, there's still a lot more to cover, right? I mean, you're just taking
Oh, yeah.
bits and pieces of this, right? So
Yeah, this is just one facet of this.
yes,
And it gets very detailed and
Yeah.
very intricate. I guess just to give kind of like a taste of if I were to do another show I would go over Yeshua's genealogy in detail and why Matthew and Luke's genealogy are different from each other.
Yes, yeah, and actually, that's fun because I was actually studying that too about the genealogies and how it points to David, but then there's also Joseph to consider, and other ramifications involved. My question to you though is, when would you want to come back on again? I don't want to tax you every week. You know what I mean? I know you got a life, you got a newborn, you got a wife and family, you got jobs,
Maybe
but
next month.
but maybe we could talk more, between you and me and Lisa, and we can see what we can schedule from you. Like, that'll give you time to do your research and to share what you've got. If that is interesting to you, I'm sure it's interesting to our group of people that's following us. So again, we'll talk more about it, but definitely would want to have you back to talk more, because this is a very broad and yet very intricate topic that can go into a lot of details, right?
Yeah, Sherry said that she would love that teaching of Yeshua's genealogy, Matthew versus Luke. So there you go, Isaiah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's a teaching. It'll definitely take up a whole section of your guys' show. That's for sure.
All right.
Yeah, well, that's good though. I mean, we've come to our lot. Well, the time that we normally sign off. It's a little bit after, but it's always good because people don't care.
It's late for him.
I know it's late for you, and we gotta respect your time too. I'm Bree's probably waiting for you. But we want to definitely thank you for coming on again and sharing, Isaiah. We appreciate you, and love you guys, you and your family very much. We'll talk during the course of the week, and then we'll plan something out. We start our brand new month again, so our Shabbat has actually been yeah, this is our Shabbat, but we kind of wanted to go into continued teaching of this topic. So
Right.
for those of you that are out there, thank you for keeping up with us. Again, we, Lisa and I and Isaiah, and including Isaac and Kaylee, we're again very grateful that you guys are tuning in with us and growing with us. There's a lot to learn. I mean, believe me, nobody knows it all, and yet here, Isaiah, myself, and Lisa, we're trying to do what we can with what we have. But don't ever think that we have the complete book of knowledge here. We are far from it. I think we're still in the introduction or the preface of that book anyway. So, but for those of you, again, we look forward to seeing you guys during the course of the week. Zen will be talking with Brett.
Zen's got a show with Brett this week, and then so we'll see you next week, Digital Readers Club.
Digital
Sharon
Readers
should be
Club
back,
on Saturday,
and then we'll have class.
and we'll have class on Saturday after that.
For November.
We'll have a thumbnail out, and whether Isaiah will be joining us or not, don't be surprised. We're here to serve you and to hopefully teach you something, and maybe you could teach us as well on things that topics that we're going to go and venture into. Isaiah, thank you so much again, brother. I just want to again,
Thank you, Isaiah.
really from the bottom of our hearts, you've done a great service for everybody here. And for those of you that have tuned in, we're going to be tuning out, and we just want to close in prayer. Isaiah, could you please lead us in prayer?
Of course. Yehovah, thank you for this day. Thank you for your Sabbath. Thank you for your past Sukkot that you had. At least for me, I don't know if others had different calendar, but yeah, we just we give you all praise and honor and glory. We just thank you for channels like Noble and Lisa's channel, for being willing to spread truth and to teach truth and to hear from people like me who don't normally teach, and giving me an outlet to speak to people. And I ask that you have mercy on me if I've misrepresented you in any way. I pray that you just guide us to follow you to the best of our abilities. We thank you for your son, Yeshua, for dying on the cross for us and giving us a perfect example of how to live out our lives. And it's in his name we ask all of these things. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Isaiah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Like Tammy says, I need to go get something to eat.
True, you're right, Tammy.
But with that, again, we will be back next week. So again, hopefully we'll see you then. For all of you again in Chatland, thanks for sharing and for following. And again, we will get back to you guys in a week's time.
All right.
So
Shalom,
with that,
everyone.
Shalom, everybody.
Thank you, moderators.
We appreciate you. Yes, moderators and everybody else. Isaiah, we'll talk later in the week, okay?
Yes, sir. Shaloha.
All right.
Aloha.
Shalom, buddy. Take care.
Bye.